true?
Yeah, he did. He did. He really went to bat for me.
For decades, Meryl Streep was Hollywood's untouchable standard of grace. Critics worshipped her. Studios trusted her. Audiences believed she rose above ego, rivalry, and resentment. She was the actress who never feuded, never complained, never showed bitterness. But that image was only half the truth. Behind closed doors, behind the awards and standing ovations, Streep carried grudges so deep they reshaped her career. At an age when most legends soften their stories, she did the opposite. In rare, carefully chosen moments, she admitted there were actors she didn't merely dislike, she despised them. And these were not minor names or forgotten faces. They were icons. Co-stars audiences adored. Men and women the world assumed she respected. The reasons weren't petty. They were personal, philosophical, and explosive. And once you hear the first name on that list, everything you thought you knew about Meryl Streep will start to crack. And the first one may shock you the most. Dustin Hoffman, the line he never should have crossed. Dustin Hoffman wasn't just a co-star Meryl Streep disliked, he was the one she never forgave. Their clash during Kramer vs. Kramer didn't begin with words. It began with a slap, unscripted, unannounced, unwanted. Hoffman believed in method acting taken to extremes, where shock produced truth. Streep believed something else entirely, that acting was built on trust. When he struck her during a take without warning, it shattered that trust instantly. To Hoffman, it was commitment. To Streep, it was violation disguised as art. The tension that followed infected every scene they shared. What audiences later praised as raw emotional realism was, in many moments, real resentment bleeding through the performances. Yes, the film became iconic. Yes, both won Oscars. But for Streep, success didn't erase humiliation. She never worked with Hoffman again. Decades later, when asked about that experience, she remained measured but firm. Talent, she made clear, never excused cruelty. In her private ranking of actors she hated the most, Hoffman wasn't just remembered, he was marked. Jack Nicholson. The collaboration she quietly killed. Meryl Streep never appeared in a film with Jack Nicholson, and in Hollywood, that absence speaks volumes. Studios tried repeatedly to pair them, convinced their combined star power would be unstoppable. Every attempt failed. The reason was simple. Streep couldn't respect Nicholson's approach to acting. He thrived on instinct, swagger, and a kind of performative masculinity that dismissed preparation as unnecessary. She saw acting as a responsibility, a duty to the character, the story, and the audience. When Nicholson openly mocked research and rehearsal, calling preparation intellectual indulgence, it hardened her resolve. To Streep, those words weren't jokes. They were a declaration of everything she rejected. Quietly, without drama, she vetoed projects that included his name. At award shows, their interactions were polite but cold. No warmth, no curiosity. Two giants standing in the same room, refusing to cross paths. Nicholson represented an old Hollywood bravado she believed was destructive, and rather than fight him publicly, Streep did something far more effective. She erased the possibility of collaboration entirely. Gwyneth Paltrow, the symbol she couldn't respect. Gwyneth Paltrow was never just another actress to Meryl Streep. She was a symbol, a representation of a Hollywood Streep no longer recognized. Paltrow's rise felt effortless industry connections, immediate acclaim, and a career that bloomed without visible struggle. To Streep, who had spent decades immersing herself in roles through relentless preparation, this ease was unsettling. The fracture became permanent in 1999. Paltrow won Best Actress for Shakespeare in Love. Streep lost for one true thing, a performance many believed was among her most emotionally demanding. Publicly, Streep smiled. Privately, she saw the race as marketing triumphing over craft. She never attacked Paltrow by name. She didn't need to. In interviews, she praised actresses known for discipline and depth, while Paltrow's name remained conspicuously absent. At industry events, their exchanges were brief and distant. To Streep, Paltrow didn't represent competition. She represented an industry drifting away from devotion toward branding. And that, more than rivalry, earned her quiet disdain. Kevin Kline. When respect turned into resentment, Kevin Kline helped Meryl Streep deliver one of the most devastating performances of her career in Sophie's Choice. On screen, their intimacy felt authentic. Off-screen, their philosophies collided. Streep prepared obsessively, treating Sophie's accent and mannerisms as extensions of trauma and history. Kline preferred instinct, believing emotion mattered more than technical precision. What might have been a creative balance became a battleground. When Kline questioned whether audiences cared about her accent work, Streep heard something deeper, a dismissal of Sophie's lived suffering. The wound reopened after filming when Kline described her process as academic in interviews. He may have meant analytical. She heard reduction. They never worked together again. At public appearances, their distance was unmistakable. Cordial, yes. Warm, never. Kline wasn't hated for incompetence. He was resented for misunderstanding what acting meant to her. And that difference was unforgivable. Alec Baldwin. Chaos disguised as charm. On the set of It's Complicated, audiences were later convinced they were watching effortless chemistry unfold between Meryl Streep and Alec Baldwin. What appeared light, playful, and natural on screen was, in reality, the result of constant tension simmering just beneath the surface. Baldwin thrived on improvisation. He rewrote dialogue mid-scene, shifted timing without warning, and treated the script as a flexible suggestion rather than a foundation. For Streep, this approach was deeply unsettling. She built her characters with surgical precision, believing that comedy only works when it grows out of emotional truth and carefully constructed intention. Baldwin's spontaneity didn't feel creative to her, it felt disruptive, even disrespectful. Scenes became quiet power struggles, not collaborations, with control of tone and rhythm constantly up for grabs. While Baldwin later laughed off the experience in interviews, framing it as harmless creative tension, Streep never shared that amusement. To her, unpredictability weakened the story's emotional spine and threatened the integrity of the character. The smiles audiences saw were professional masks. Behind them were clenched jaws and mounting frustration. The laughter convinced viewers, but it fooled no one on set. Baldwin embodied a style of acting that treated structure as optional. For Streep, structure was sacred. Jeremy Irons' coldness she couldn't penetrate. Jeremy Irons and Meryl Streep looked on paper like an inevitable pairing destined for artistic greatness. Both were classically trained, intellectually rigorous, and widely respected for their command of craft. But what appeared to be a perfect match quickly unraveled behind the scenes. Irons approached performance with restraint, believing power came from emotional distance and control. Streep worked in the opposite direction. She excavated her characters from the inside out, digging through history, trauma, and psychology until vulnerability surfaced naturally. The clash became unavoidable when Irons dismissed her painstaking preparation as technical showmanship rather than emotional truth. The comment cut deeply. To Streep, accents, gestures, and vocal detail were not decorative flourishes. They were biography. They were evidence of a life lived before the camera ever rolled. From that moment on, their scenes felt less like collaboration and more like confrontation. His cool composure stood rigid against her emotional intensity, creating an atmosphere thick with unspoken hostility. Crew members sensed it immediately. There were no shouting matches, no public arguments. Instead, both actors retreated into themselves, communicating only when necessary. Irons viewed her as excessive and self-indulgent. Streep saw him as emotionally hollow. When the work ended, so did the relationship. The silence that followed spoke far louder than any public feud ever could. Harvey Keitel, the method actor she rejected. Harvey Keitel never became a frequent collaborator of Meryl Streep, and that distance was no accident. From the outset, Streep recognized in Keitel a form of method acting pushed to its most confrontational edge. His reputation was built on aggression, dominance, and emotional intimidation, all defended in the name of authenticity. To Streep, that philosophy crossed a dangerous line. She believed acting was a shared space that required trust, boundaries, and mutual respect. Method acting, in her view, should never be used as an excuse to unsettle, overpower, or emotionally corner another performer. During early conversations about potential projects, their differences surfaced almost immediately. Keitel valued provocation and believed discomfort could unlock truth. Streep believed truth emerged from consent, collaboration, and psychological safety. The divide was unbridgeable. As a result, the collaborations never moved forward. There was no public feud, no dramatic fallout, no harsh words exchanged in the press. Streep simply declined to participate. To her, Keitel represented a school of acting that prioritized personal catharsis over collective responsibility. Rather than confront that ideology head-on, she chose absence over argument. In Meryl Streep's world, walking away was not avoidance. It was a deliberate statement of principle and the most powerful one she could make. In the end, what these stories reveal isn't a petty list of grudges or a catalog of Hollywood feuds. They reveal something far more uncomfortable and far more human. Meryl Streep's legacy was never built on being agreeable. It was built on conviction, on boundaries, on an uncompromising belief that acting is not just performance, but responsibility. For her, talent without respect was meaningless. Brilliance without ethics was hollow. And success never justified crossing a line. What makes these revelations so unsettling is that they shatter the myth of universal admiration. We like to believe great artists admire each other endlessly, that legends coexist in harmony. Streep's truth tells a different story. It tells us that even at the highest level, values collide, philosophies clash, and sometimes the price of integrity is isolation. She didn't shout. She didn't smear. She didn't retaliate publicly. She simply remembered. And when necessary, she walked away. These actors, some celebrated, some controversial, some revered, weren't rejected because they lacked talent. They were rejected because, in her eyes, they violated something fundamental: trust, preparation, emotional safety, or respect for the craft. That distinction matters. It reframes her so-called hatred not as bitterness, but as refusal. Refusal to compromise what she believed acting should be. And perhaps that's the most powerful takeaway. In an industry built on ego and image, Meryl Streep chose principle over popularity again and again. She understood that silence can speak louder than confrontation, that absence can be more damning than accusation, and that walking away doesn't make you weak, it makes your values visible. Now the question turns to you. Did any of these names surprise you? Do you think Streep was right to draw such hard lines, or should great art require enduring difficult personalities? Where do you believe the boundary lies between artistic freedom and professional respect? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective matters, especially if you've followed Hollywood long enough to remember when these legends first rose to power. If you found this breakdown revealing, unsettling, or thought-provoking, don't forget to like the video. It helps keep stories like this alive. And make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the untold truths behind Hollywood's most carefully protected images. Because behind every legend is a story they rarely tell. And we're just getting started.